barely the whole time.
Okay, actually,
I mean, I'm trying to stay on.
I'm trying to get the gavel today.
Are we?
Yes, we are. So I'd like to go ahead and call this regular board meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Second item is approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
We have several recognitions tonight to start the evening. I want to first recognize Kaylee Baslin. I see Kaylee's on the line with us. Welcome, Kaylee. She is the Vestavia High School diving individual state champion. Vestavia Hills Junior Kaylee Baslin won the 6A, 7A Alabama State Championship in girls diving in December 2020. Kaylee took home the top place in the 1 meter diving category with a score of 366.1. And this was Kaylee's first year to compete in diving on the state level. And if I remember right, Kaylee, you just took this up, this diving thing up in the last year. So congratulations on an incredible feat. Not sure she can hear us, but if you can, congratulations. That's outstanding. We're very proud of you. Yeah, she was featured in an article in Vestavia Voice. Probably can find it, and would be a cool thing to read about. I was so impressed with that. All right. Our second group of student athletes, Ethan Strand and Crawford West. Or Ethan or Crawford on, you see it?
Not sure. You may want to go back just briefly and mention Kaylee, because I think I still had the mic muted, and I apologize for that.
Okay. Kaylee, can you hear us now, Kaylee Baslin?
Yes,
Did you get to hear me recognize you a minute ago?
no, sir.
All right, well, I'm going to again, okay? Here we go. I'm Todd Freeman, by the way, Kaylee. You are the state champion this year, 6A, 7A Alabama State Champion in girls diving. You won that December 20th. And you took home first place, as you know, in the 1 meter diving category with a score of 366.1. And this was your first year to compete in diving on the state level. And Kaylee, I told the board that I think, if I remember the article correctly in the paper, you only took up diving within the last year. Does that sound about right? Kaylee, congratulations.
She just took a dive.
All right.
That's right.
Yes, okay. Ethan Strand and Crawford West, we'll recognize them at the AHSAA Indoor Track Championship in February. Ethan Strand broke his own previous record in the 7A boys 800 meter final with a time of 1 minute 51.07 seconds. That's 800 meters. That's 2 miles, by the way. His time was recorded as the fastest 800 meter time in America for high school boys. Wow. Strand also won the 1600 meter and 3200 meter finals and led the Rebels to a state championship in the boys 4x4 meter relay. Strand later won the national championship in the boys mile run at the Adidas Indoor Nationals in Virginia Beach, Virginia, with a time of 4 minutes, 10.31 seconds. Ethan also ran the anchor leg of the boys 4x4 meter relay, and the team placed fourth in the nation with a time of 3 minutes, 22.12 seconds. Ethan is the most attended person in board meetings since I've been here, besides board members. So once again, an outstanding accomplishment and a tremendous career in high school for Ethan. Congratulations, Ethan, if you're hearing us. And Crawford West was at the AHSAA State Championship, and Crawford set a new state record in the 7A girls 1600 meter final with a time of 4 minutes, 59.58 seconds. And she also won state championships in the girls 800 meter and 3200 meter finals. West competed at the Adidas Indoor Nationals, placing 6th in the girls 2 mile run and 14th in the mile run. Crawford, congratulations. If you're hearing us, we're so proud. This is another outstanding accomplishment. It's so good. And Coach Huber, I'm not sure he's with us this evening as well, but we're certainly proud of the program and the accomplishments of Ethan and Crawford. All right, our third group is our Vestavia Hills High School wrestling team and coaches. And I see Coach Adams join us today. It looks like from the weight room probably, or the wrestling room. We're probably getting ready for next year. Coach Adams, the AHSAA State Wrestling Championships in February, Vestavia Hills High School defeated reigning champions Thompson High School to win the 7A State Championship. The Rebels defeated the Warriors 277.5 to 240.5 in the overall team score. That's a good win. The championship is the 16th overall in Vestavia Hills High School history. The team finished second in the state in the 7A state duels, which took place in January. 10 Vestavia Hills High School wrestlers earned individual wins in the state duels championship. What a great year. Coach, I believe this is your second state championship since your re-arrival to Vestavia Hills High School.
Yes, that's correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're very proud of you and all of your team. That's quite an accomplishment.
It's all for the boys. Boys
I
and
know.
all.
Well, I appreciate it. It takes good leadership. Congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you.
All right. Last group I wanted to recognize to you are our Vestavia Hills High School Presidential Scholars. 10 Vestavia Hills High School students qualified this year for the United States Presidential Scholars Program. The Scholars Program recognizes America's most distinguished graduating high school seniors, as well as students who demonstrate exceptional talent in the arts and in career and technical education fields. Up to 161 students are named Presidential Scholars each year, and the final list will be announced in May. We have some of the Presidential Scholars on the call with us today, so I want to read those names out to you and recognize them. The first is Katie Chin, who's with us. Congratulations, Katie. Jason Hahn, Joshua Kaiser, Esther Lee, Anushka Patel, congratulations. Anushka, awesome. Hannah Shaw, Dylan Shee, Alex Stern, Ethan Wafra, and Ariel Zoe. Congratulations, Ariel, and to all of our Presidential Scholars. Fantastic accomplishment. Would any of you like to comment on what your plans are when you graduate Vestavia Hills High School? No plans. Come on, Katie, you go first. Yes. Ariel going to college?
Yes, sir.
I thought you might. And I bet you.
Also planning to attend a college. I'm still undecided on which one yet, but hopefully in the future I'll know.
Yeah, we look forward to the big reveal. Congratulations, ladies, on a great accomplishment. Good luck.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
well done.
Thank you.
Well, I just have to tell you, hey, there's Oliver.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Aaron, I'm glad you're with us. I do want to make note of this. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you on the meeting, but Oliver wears many hats. Of course, college career counseling is one. Tonight, I'm asking you to remember that he does some other things, like he's the swimming coach, and he also handles his work with Presidential Scholars. So that's why he's joining us on this tonight. So we recognize swimmers and Presidential Scholars. Oliver, any comments you want to make about these students?
No, sir. I know that Kaylee's audio was in and out. But she started diving when the city opened the pool Labor Day weekend. I just happened to see her out there. My family was out there. She dove. She practiced for 9 weeks and then went to the state meet in Huntsville and won the state championship, which is really outstanding. And she put in a lot of hard work. And then our Presidential Scholars, of course, we have outstanding students at Vestavia Hills High School, Vestavia City Schools. And those students were recognized. I think they were a little shy about announcing where they were going to school.
Understand.
Many of them haven't heard back from a number of colleges they've applied to. A lot of the selective schools are releasing around April 6th. So they are anxiously awaiting decisions from schools currently.
Oliver, you didn't give yourself enough credit because I think Kaylee was diving at the pool, but you asked her to join the team and get involved in diving. So you found the talent.
That's right. I saw her diving and I went up and just asked her if she was interested in joining the team. And she did, started practicing and won a state championship.
Yeah. Good. I'd say that's a pretty good job in a few months. Well done. Thank you, Oliver. Appreciate it. Thanks for
Thank you
joining
for
us.
bringing on board.
All right.
Can we get him a pass to the ballpark?
Talent scout. Yeah. All right, on to our financial statement.
Good afternoon. I provided the February 2021 financial statements and check register for your review. As of February 21, we have collected 72.7% of our budgeted ad valorem tax revenues. This is compared to 79% that we had received this time last year. Receipts are coming in slower this year, and we have not yet collected as much as last year at this date, but I still believe we're on track to collect 100% of the total amount that we have budgeted for the year. And our total expenditures as of February were 44% of the budget compared to 44.7% at this time last year. And all board bank accounts have been reconciled as of February 28, 2021.
Yeah, I think it's particularly notable, again, what Courtney said, that I think our percentages are right. This time last year, we had about 79% of local revenue collected. This year, we're about 72%. That's a significant amount of money that we're still waiting for. And it's just been slower this year to come.
And we increased the budget too,
That's
so the benchmark is
That's
hire,
right.
but I think we're still on
Yeah.
track.
Good thing. I recommend the board approve the financial statement for February 2020 and 21.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve? Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 6, I recommend the board approve consent items related to out-of-state trips and disposal of property.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Under
I
business.
do real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. The Revelette camp, will they have the same criteria for travel in the summer that we're doing now?
We asked them to sign off on that. I would say at any point we're able to change any criteria, we would. But part of the document that you have is just their acknowledgement of the current procedures we have would be followed. And I was expecting that we might have some guidance from the organization. I think we will. I don't have that with me, but yes, it's like the cheerleading competition. They'll have parameters set there as well that have to be followed.
Okay.
So, yeah. All right, under business item A, this is just information only. I wanted to make sure you were aware of the way we have handled leave this year relative to employees who have to be out because of COVID-related quarantine. And the last year around this time, when the first stimulus bill was passed, the law set in place that allowed for family medical leave to be taken for certain amounts of time, receiving certain amounts of pay based on COVID-related issues. And so we adopted that for our system. And then I asked you in January to approve that extension through March 31st. And that was because the second COVID bill passed in late December allowed us to do that. The third COVID bill that was passed just a couple of weeks ago allows employers to extend family medical leave for COVID-related through September 30th. What is not clear at this time is if boards or businesses can arbitrarily set dates. In other words, May 27th, it's not clear whether we can do that or if you're going to do it, you got to do it through September 30th. So we have a policy on administrative leave, which many boards use in this case. And what I wanted to tell you is that while we're not reviewing the COVID leave part of the federal legislation, employees from now through the end of school that have to be out because of COVID related will go on administrative leave. And that's not a disciplinary function. It basically pays their leave for COVID related. And we'll honor that through the end of the school year. And hopefully by fall, we're not having to do any additional things related to that. But I just want to make sure you knew that was going to still stay in place. Somewhat a matter of semantics, but employees need to know that they're still going to be covered.
It doesn't affect any benefits or anything
It
like
does
that.
not. No, and it doesn't impact their leave time, their personal or sick. So that they're not charged for that. All right. Okay, on to item B. I recommend the board approve the contract for incubator EDU.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve? Second. Any discussion?
Yeah, so what is incubator EDU? You want to take this or you want me to do it? Okay. All right. Incubator EDU is a entrepreneurial program that's offered inside business courses that are under the Career Tech umbrella at the high school. And we've had a neighboring system, friends of ours that have been doing this for a couple of years with great success. Basically, students in classes develop entrepreneurial ideas that they market, and they try to convince people that would judge this, which would be community leaders, business leaders, on the viability of their entrepreneurial idea. And they can get funded for their idea. And so you work with local entities, businesses, service clubs, whatever, to secure partnerships to allow the work to take place. But Incubator EDU is the program and the materials and the curriculum for this entrepreneurial program. So I think it's I'm really excited to watch this take place. It's been met with, I think, great success in a neighboring district, and I'm appreciative of Dr. Cooper for making this happen. It's been quite a venture to get us there, but we're bringing that to you today for consideration.
And that's within one of the courses already?
It would be within, this specific course, I'm sorry, I don't remember, but it's,
I don't know the name of it either, but it's gonna be embedded in one of our career and technical courses, but it's really exciting.
it's the business
Mhm.
cluster that it would be under.
So this is kind of a Shark Tankish type.
It is, that's a
Yeah.
great, and I think Dr. Cooper may allude to that in the fall with you a bit, where he was heading, but that's exactly what it is.
It's good.
And we'll start this in the fall.
Yeah, that's right. It's in the fall.
All in favor?
All right, item C, I recommend the board approve the principal contract attached for Ms. Kim Hauser.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Item D, I recommend the board approve the principal's contract with Dr. Ty Harrington.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Item E, I recommend the board approve a non-renewal of principal contract with Dr. Tyler Burgess.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
And the minutes do reflect the notation of rationale, just for your information. Item F, I recommend the board approve the architectural engineering agreement for Vestavia's high school fieldhouse improvements.
You've heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to pause here because I'd like to address several items that actually are items F through J, and ask Dr. Mark to address this because what we're asking you to do tonight is to, I should wait on this one because this doesn't have to do with that. But we can go ahead and discuss it. But I do want him to cover with you fund sources for where these projects and things are coming from. So it would be relevant for you to hear that because we are asking you to approve a significant amount of expenditures tonight.
All right, so if you recall from the field house, I'll start with F and just and sort of work through. If you recall from the field house, we recently approved an expenditure to improve the roof system above the field house. That is now complete. I think that was actually our last board meeting. And so it's nice to have that under warranty. We are now looking at the internal portions of that site. And this is not just for football, which is the main or the lower level portion of the field house, but there are also some spaces up above that are field side, track side that are used by several different sports. And so we're going to improve that space as well. And so trying to touch on a lot of different athletic improvements that we've done across the system. But I know Dr. Freeman has asked Coach Seegers if he would come later on to share with the board some of those improvements later. This is just one of the pieces of this overall athletic improvement that we've been looking to do. And so what the funding sources for F that we're looking at are, some of that will come from athletics, some of that will come from capital, which those will be more for the universal areas that accommodate several of the sporting areas. And then through our athletic groups, our different athletic groups, they've been able to fundraise. And so a large portion of this will come from those fundraising endeavors. In terms of, if you look down at some of the other improvements, G through K, we received, the school system received about $8.5 million from the capital bond bill. And so that's PSCA money that the system is utilizing for some of these improvements. I can share with you that we're looking at, of the 8.5, about $650,000 in improvements for safety and security for several of our school sites. If you recall, the Board of Education, about 2 years now, entered into an agreement with DOL Solutions LLC. And what they've done is they've gone into every one of our schools and done a formal audit of where safety improvements can be made. And so we then took that to Lathan and Associates, and Lathan and Associates, that's what this OA agreement represents, is the work of DOL from the safety and security standpoint, and then the architectural renderings that they've put together to accommodate that. And so that's what this OA agreement represents. Moving through the list, the Board of Education has already approved bids for library improvements at Dolly Ridge, East and West. And so after that bid, these are now the contracts following Mr. Boone's review of those. And so we bring those to you as a recommendation as well. I can just share with you in terms of costs, those are right at about that $1 million range for all three improvements. And I can just share with you, having been at the schools with our building principals as well as our media center specialists, they're excited about these are going to be nice changes for those three facilities. Very well needed. These are needed improvements. And then the track, if you recall, last month the Board of Education approved bids for the track. We are complete with the ZITS track portion of this work. But now, if you recall, the high school track, we were looking to purchase the surface of that track system off of state bid. And so that's what this action item allows. So I think
Good.
that's agreement that sums it up.
So item F is the only one of the items that's not related to the capital bond funds that came from the state. And it's large part being funded, it's not board-related funds, but where the board is funding would be the architect agreement in multi-use areas for other sports.
That's correct.
Which is great. To date, upon the board's approval of these expenditures, how much have we expended from I think it's about 8.3.
That's right.
Yeah, capital funds.
I would say that would leave us with a remaining balance, and that's counting if the board approves the $650,000 in safety and security upgrades. We would be right at about that $5.6 million figure left.
You'll be hearing next month from our energy management people about where we may be taking on a good portion of the rest of those expenses.
Does it have to be spent this year?
No, we've got some time.
It can help.
Dr. Martin, DOL, at some time in the past, couple of years probably, we were looking at a security firm to audit entrance, egress to the high school and other schools. So this is part of that then.
So they've really, it's sort of a two-pronged approach. And when we entered into the agreement, what we were looking at doing is, and we have met with a system-wide safety task force. We've met 4 or 5 times. Principals have met locally. We've met at a system level. So they've looked at 2 things. One were infrastructure upgrades that we look to give to Dr. Freeman at the end of January. The other portion of that audit was to look at our policies and procedures, our practices. And so the VHAP, the Vestavia Hills Action Plan, some of the other practices that we're doing here in the system, they've supported with that to the point that we feel it's been such a good job that we actually presented in February at the State Superintendent's Conference with DOL. And had a nice response from State Superintendent's Conference.
Thank
you. So we're on item F.
I was going to say, do we want to do,
Yeah.
can we vote on all these at the same time?
No.
No, we have to do them all individually. Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second for item F. Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Item G, I recommend the board approve the architectural engineering agreement for safety and security upgrades.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
These are great improvements. I appreciate it. We won't really get into specificity with it for obvious reasons, but it's been a very comprehensive look at safety in the district. So I'm excited to see this work take place. Item H, I recommend the board approve the contract for library renovation at Vestavia Hills Elementary, Dolly Ridge.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Letter I recommend the board approve the contract for library renovation at Vestavia Hills Elementary East.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item J, I recommend the board approve the contract for library renovation at Vestavia Hills Elementary West.
You've heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Item K, I recommend the board approve the contract for track materials.
You've heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Dr. Baker, if I may just make a point of this particular contract, this is materials that is based on a state or a consortium contract, so we don't have to bid this type of work. It's already been bid for us through a consortium, a purchasing consortium. So, so make sure that we say that because of the value of this project.
And this is the super fast surface, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We refer to this as the Ethan Strand.
No pressure to the track team.
That's right. His name on it.
Exactly.
All in favor?
Letter L, I recommend the board approve the bid for painting.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Yeah, I'd like to offer some comment about this particular bid. One of the things that we want to make sure we ensure in our system is compliance with bid law. And as it relates to anything like painting, you can do projects along the way that can mount up to equaling and surpassing what would be a threshold for bidding. And painting is one of those places we can do that. And this is something Ms. Brown has been talking with us about for a while, which is a good move for the district in that we get a per hour rate. That way we can use a painter at a moment's notice for something we need to do and not get into trouble with bid. And so what you have here is a rate that's based on hourly. A comment I think that may be important to make here is when it comes to hourly rates, there are potentials for abuse of hourly rates if work's not being performed. Perhaps you could speak to that, who the person who submitted the bid was and our past experiences with him.
Sure. So we've traditionally approved work with Johnny Hamilton, and we had several firms that requested bid specs and took those out, which was good because we have some other references that we can access if we need to. But the lone bidder, as you have in your backup there, was Johnny Hamilton. So it's nice to have experience. He has experience in the system, has done a lot of work in the system, but we've also clarified just what that hourly rate is going forward.
So there were several people were interested, but that was the only bid that was
That was the
submitted.
lone individual that submitted bid. And we asked for recommendations as well as some other qualifications through the bid spec as well. Dr. Freeman, does that answer the call?
Any questions? All in favor?
Item M, I recommend the board approve the IT system specialist job description.
I've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Second.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Yeah. Okay. All in favor?
Item N, I recommend the board approve the job description for the college and career specialist.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I'd like to comment, Dr. Baker, we actually have a college and career specialist. He was on with us just a few minutes ago. This job description has been in existence. It was not part of the updates we did last summer that you approved a massive amount of. And so basically we did was just make sure the formatting was up to date and make sure the qualifications were as they should be. The reason why this is relevant today is because I've given Ms. Roselle an additional college career specialist position. So Mr. Aaron will have an additional support. He's had Ms. Gajewski for a number of years help on that part of it, but we're giving him a full-time position, much needed, much deserved for our students. So I think it's a really good move, but that's the purpose of why it's here today.
This will give him more time to scout that.
That's right.
Which means go to the park.
Exactly, yeah.
Goals and all that.
All in favor?
Very good. Item 8 is personnel, and I recommend the board approve personnel action test submitted.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Board members, thank you for the approvals of those. I do want to make you aware, of course, in the personnel sections of the approval with Dr. Chris Pennington, who will be moving to the position of Director of Assessment Accountability. Obviously, that opens the position for the principalship at Pheasants Middle School, which we will be advertising very soon. And I also want to make you aware that we'll advertise a principal position at the freshman campus. And the reason why we wait, there's several reasons we waited for this to take place, but all along we thought we probably would use two principals at the high school freshman campus, is that we earn a state principal unit for that campus next school year, and that's a good thing in terms of a budget and fiscal responsibility. And also, it's been a year that we've been able to make the transition, a successful one, I believe, to 912, and I think it's ready to stand on its own. And so we'll get both those positions advertised coming up this week.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Under employments, these are new hires, correct?
Yes, sir.
Does this include the graduating seniors that have interviewed from the various colleges? Do you know?
In terms of who interviewed for those positions, I don't know that information. We do have some teachers that have, that are on this employment list, right? But now I can tell you that Meredith has had interviews on college campuses,
Right.
like University of Alabama was one. We did, that was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yes, yes.
You were part of that one.
And she's done a lot of screenings, so, for students who will be graduating to be able to work in the fall. So yes, we've included those in our applicant pool.
Okay, so there's still more hires to come is what I'm asking.
Oh, I certainly.
Yes, we
Okay,
just
okay.
begun the hiring season.
Gotcha, okay. All right. Just curious,
Yeah.
so.
Good. It would be nice if they stayed this low, but.
Yeah.
All right. Ms. Brooke Wedgeworth is with us today. Thanks for joining us. And I asked her to bring you a report about the Alabama Literacy Act. And this is something that has gotten a lot of attention media-wise in the state, maybe not as much locally, but its impact is still important for us. So, Brooke, appreciate you doing this. Take it away.
Yes, so today I'm going to share with you some more information about the Literacy Act, and then you can ask questions if you have some. So just a little bit.
Is it turned on?
That's a good thing. Thanks, Will. Okay, this is a little bit about the Literacy Act. In case it actually became law in June of 2019. We didn't see a lot of effects of it last school year, but really a lot of what is included in this law really affected us this school year and from here on. So I'll be touching on that. The main emphasis is it really focuses on kindergarten through third grade students. And the goal is that all of the students in Alabama are reading on or above grade level by the end of third grade. So probably what you've heard the most in the news has to do with the retention piece, which does not go into effect for this school year. The goal right now, it's supposed to go into effect for next school year, but I know there's still some decisions being made about that, so that might be delayed. So we'll see more about that, I'm sure, to come in the news. So the requirements, there are actually many requirements, and if you're interested in reading the law, I'm happy to share it with you. I think it's about 80 pages, so I won't cover everything that's included in that. But I just wanted to highlight some of the requirements that I think are big and some of the things that we've really focused a lot of energy on this year. So one piece of that is literacy assessments, something that we've already had in place and had in place for several years, but now is mandated by this law. And then we actually had certain assessments that we could select from. Luckily, the assessments we were already using were on that approved list. So we have continued with those assessments 3 times a year. It also mandates specific intervention programs. Again, we've already had reading intervention in place for many years. They did come out with a list of certain intervention programs that you can use. And once again, we already had those in place and ours were on that list. So we've continued with those. One thing to come with the law is a core reading program. So we do have a core reading program, but they will mandate which core reading program we can use, or we'll have a list to choose from. We don't have that yet. We do have reading adoption coming up next school year, so I'm sure there'll be more to come with that. One thing I do want to highlight with this, and you'll see various pictures throughout the presentation, but I've really chosen to highlight our school's interventionists at the elementary level, since this is very much an elementary geared law. And so I've chosen to highlight them as well as our instructional coaches that you'll see at the end, because I feel like our interventionists are key. So each of our elementary schools have their own interventionist, something that we put in place, I think, 2 school years ago, and is completely funded locally. So that's not something that is funded by the state, but yet we are required to offer intervention to our students who need it. So luckily, again, our school system saw the need and put that in place well before it was even mandated. So we do have an interventionist at each school. We also have additional interventionists provided by the local schools. So they have some who work part-time, funded through other funds they have, PTO funds, that type of thing. So I think we realize the value of that and really support that. They also have some requirements about our literacy specialists. We do have what we call an instructional coach, what they call literacy specialists at each of our elementary schools. Again, we've had those for many years. Those are partially funded by the state. Again, not completely funded, but we do have one of those for each of our elementary schools. And they are a huge support. I will have to say that there's no way that we could do all of this and support our teachers really the way that we need to, and our students, without their assistance of really making all these things happen. So I definitely want to highlight them and their role. One other requirement is a student reading improvement plan. Sometimes you'll hear it called a SRIP, just to shorten that. And so that is not something that we had before, although we have SST, and they meet and do come up with a plan for our students. In this law, it's a very formalized plan and it's very specific. So we now have a term for that provided for us. There are some allowances for dyslexia training, screening, and intervention, which again, we've had in place for many years. It allows for before and after school tutoring, which is a new thing for us. So I'll get to that a little bit more, but that is an addition, as well as a summer reading camp. And that we'll have our first official summer reading camp this summer. Another part of this was communication. And so I think that's something we've always strived, is to communicate well with our parents in our community. But we've really outlined a communication plan within this on how we communicate with parents. And there are some very specific requirements in here as well. I may have you click on this. So this is just this is a timeline for our school year. Okay, that's okay, I forgot it. This is a timeline for, and I know you can't really read that, and that's okay because you don't want to read all of it, but really outlining, because there's so many steps within the law that we have to follow, like what happens in August. And once we administer this assessment, then we notify parents. And we have 30 days to do that. Then we have 15 days to put a plan in place. So this is really a timeline that has helped me and helped our administrators make sure that we're really following what we need to do each month and staying on track. And so it just kind of gives you a highlight of what is happening and what's going on with that, how we're communicating. And if you want to see the full timeline, I'll share it with you. You can read all of it. So one thing I mentioned was the student reading improvement plan. So I do want to go into specifics of some of these. So like I said, this is something that the term is new for us, some of the requirements. But again, when we noticed that a student had a reading deficiency, we automatically put a plan in place. We met as a student support team. We provided intervention. Now we just have a formalized process for that. So that's the student reading improvement plan. So once we identify a student with a deficiency, the team meets, including teachers, parents, administrators. They develop this plan, of course, the parents are part of that, and then the student begins receiving the intervention services that they need. I will say that I think in just about all cases of our students who we determined to have a consistent reading deficiency in the fall had already been receiving intervention. So it was not a new thing for those kids. We had already recognized that well before. It does also include evidence-based reading intervention services that the student will receive. So that's one thing that is outlined in the plan. We then monitor those students monthly, report back to the parents on that progress each month, and continue to make sure that we're providing what that student needs. So I will say at this point, a lot of our students received the plan in the fall after fall testing. Then we did another assessment in the middle of the year, and we had a few more students who we also created a plan for. So at this point, we have approximately 94 students of our kindergarten through third grade students who have a student reading improvement plan, and that is about 4% of all of our kindergarten through third grade students.
Do we test our virtual kids?
Yes. So what we did, we use iReady reading we use it on that, but for first through third graders, and so they're able to actually administer that at home. Our kindergarten students, we use Dibbles assessments, and so we did request that our virtual students come in, because it's a one-on-one test. We can provide a very safe, secure, and so our students did, and we were able to assess them that way.
So what triggers it, below level? Like if you're below level, you need to be?
So that actually, it ends up being those who, with Dibbles, it would be like red, intensive support. With iReady, there are cut scores. And so we look at, most of those were around like 10th percentile, but those were determined by that company. And then what we do, Jennifer, is we look at those students who are below that, and then we look at all the data on them and determine, is this something that is a consistent, or is it like a one-time, like they had a bad day and didn't do, great on their assessment. So, but then we determine it from that. And then one of the next steps, so after they've already been in intervention, we're making sure we're providing what they need. Our next step was to look and see, do we then need to offer before after school tutoring, which is another part of the law. And so we did that after our mid-year assessment and looked at our kids who had a reading plan and those who weren't making adequate progress. And those students were then provided or offered before after school tutoring. So that's like, they're getting intervention already during the school day. Now here's another opportunity for you to receive reading intervention.
The interventionists do that, or the teachers?
So we actually we looked for any of our teachers or interventionists or our literacy specialists who were, highly performing in reading. And then they could apply to do that. So we actually have 36 students who have taken advantage of that tutoring option, and 19 of our teachers are performing tutoring. Most of them are doing it after school. So that's been, and that began the beginning of February.
Do we have any data that, say your group of 94, are we following them through, and are we seeing any of the 94 going back to the levels that
Yes.
they're asked to be at?
Yes, and so that is interesting. We did actually, so students will stay on a student reading improvement plan unless they meet grade level. And so we have actually had a few at mid-year who have actually come up to grade level, which is great progress, because you have to realize our students, who received a plan were far below grade level. So not just maybe, not like a few months behind, but possibly even, a couple grade levels behind. So yes, we have seen really good progress.
Oh, that's good. And if the case were needed, a kindergartner today could be on this plan through graduating high school, correct?
Yeah, there's still a little clarification that the state's making about how long, because this goes through third grade, but it sounds like they stay on a plan, but we're not really sure what that looks like after third grade. So, it's still coming in bits and pieces from the state and from the literacy task force.
But we offer that as a school system.
We sure do, and that's the thing, we still have intervention.
Yeah.
And again, had it before this, so that will continue anyway, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Does the intervention specialist come into the classroom, or are they being pulled to where?
Most, they're actually pulling kids, because most of what the interventionists do is they do tier 3 intervention. So those are for, students who are 2 grade levels behind. So they're going back and saying, okay, we know you've missed some prerequisite skills. So it's not something, like if you're in third grade, it's not, this is what you need to work on in third grade. We need to go back and find some gaps from like first grade, kindergarten, that type of thing. So they receive intervention from their classroom teacher that's on grade level things, and then intervention from the interventionist that goes to past skills. Does that make sense?
I've got one more question, and then I'll.
Sure, go ahead.
You mentioned the tutor, after-school
Yes.
tutor. Is that a teacher that's voluntarily staying after school on their own time to work with the students?
They are, but we are paying them.
Okay.
So luckily, and again, that is not funded as well. This year, we were able to receive the CARES funding, and we were able to apply a portion of that to the before after-school tutoring.
Okay.
Otherwise, there would not have been
Okay.
funding for that, so.
And the makeup funding is how?
Well, but, moving forward, it depends on whether the legislature will appropriate some dollars toward this. And I think that they will continue as they see the magnitude of this.
Right.
We're talking about 80 students or so in our district. My percentage is pretty small to what some will see, and our district locally can fund things differently. So I can't imagine that they're not going to step in at the state budget level and appropriate dollars toward this before after school tutoring and summer school.
Okay. But if not, it's on us
It'll be
as a
on us.
system.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be on- Which is not unusual. There are a number of
Right.
laws out there that don't come with
Mandate.
funding mechanism.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many days do they get intervention? Is it like daily they're gonna get pulled and worked, or is it just based off the level that they're at?
Well,
I
just
know in
like
the classroom they
intervention
will.
is during the day, would pull them 4 to 5 days a week. And then the before after school tutoring is a little bit different, so it varies. But most of them would be staying after maybe 2 to 3 days after school. So,
So the other funding, you said you're pulling from community sources like PTO and to supplement?
well, and some of our schools to provide additional intervention because their interventionists, pretty much have a full schedule. Okay, another requirement is summer reading camp, and so we are excited about this, although it is a required mandate. It's also exciting that we have this opportunity for summer reading camp, and so again, that is offered to all of our kindergarten through third grade students who are identified with a reading deficiency. So our students who already have a student reading improvement plan, they've already been notified, received a letter. We asked them to respond back if they would attend. And so right now we have a little bit over 80 students who have accepted that invitation. It will be 70 hours of scientifically based reading, instruction, and intervention. So very intensive. And so we've really been working on planning it for months. I think right now we'll have about 9 classrooms of students. We're trying to keep those classrooms around 10 to 12 students so they can really get that targeted intervention that they need, while also making it fun. Because what we know is most of our students who are coming to summer reading camp, they have struggled with reading and in that area. And so sometimes they may not enjoy it and find excitement in it. So we're really trying to make it about, how can we help them improve, but also help them love and enjoy reading in books. So trying to balance those two.
Is this like 3 weeks or 2 days every week?
So it will be about the whole month of June. We'll start, I think, June 7th, and it'll go through about the end of June, Monday through Friday from 8 to 12 o'clock. And so we've been really working, the instructional coaches and I have really been working on, what could that look like, designing it. We're working with, we'll be using an intervention program called Voyager Passport, which really targets all of those foundational skills. And again, it looks exciting too, and then we're trying to add our own spin on it to keep it, to really, make the kids want to come this summer.
The 70 hours work is part of the law. We didn't come up
It
with
is,
that.
correct.
So you might answer this question to help a little bit with context of the summer reading camp. While retention wouldn't be required this year, this becomes critical whenever the legislature decides retention will happen
Yes.
if they don't meet certain benchmarks, and that's where summer reading camp comes in to keep them from being retained.
Yes.
So
It's like
theoretically.
your last chance to get up high enough before you have to repeat the grade.
Yeah, and that's the goal, is if we can provide intervention, tutoring in summer reading camp, hopefully, all of our students can make enough gains so that they're where they need to be in reading to be successful, and then also to, to not.
Technically, you can't mandate a kid come to after school or something.
That's right.
It's
This is the.
optional.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's a law.
Herein lies, that's the road,
Yeah.
retention becomes a requirement, that's
Yeah.
right.
And it's not optional for us to offer it, so it's
Yes.
optional if people choose to come, but yes.
And that's 80 out of system-wide K through 3?
Yeah, so of the 94 kids who have a student reading improvement plan,
Oh,
now I will
okay.
say we did invite kindergartners too, a few in addition to that, because although we do have some kindergarten students with a student reading improvement plan, it's a little bit harder because they've only been in school for a few months, so there's not been consistent data that they have a reading deficiency, unless they've repeated kindergarten. So, but we have invited students who have consistently been below that cut score since school started, because we know if we can go ahead and offer that this summer, that's gonna give them that extra step.
Okay, so this is just offered to the ones deemed,
Yes,
oh, okay,
with the plan,
with the
yes.
deficiency.
Yeah,
or
so,
plan.
well, I mean, we
Okay.
have a large number who have accepted
Yeah,
that
that's,
invitation, which is very exciting.
But it's not Vestavia is providing summer camp.
No.
And that was my question.
Correct.
Yeah, they'll be lined up at the doors.
Yeah.
Yes, because I'm sure we have some who would like to, take advantage of that, but it's an offering to them, so. Yes, and I'd love for y'all to come, once we get that going in June, to come. The last day is actually gonna be a celebration, so we've been really trying to plan some things for kids to share their learning, hopefully with their parents. So we're gonna make it a celebration of learning and excitement and all that they've gained over the month. So
Do you
that's,
test them at the end of the summer again to see?
oh yes. So that's part of we'll do we'll have a pre-assessment. We'll assess them twice during those 70 hours and then post at the end.
Is
So
that already mandated by the state?
testing is, and iReady is one of our choices.
We chose out of the list.
Yes, so there were about 4 choices on there, so. Another piece, which this is, I guess, part of it is professional learning that our teachers engage in. Again, I'm excited because this is something we've been doing for many years, and now it falls in line with what is required. But our teachers have participated in some various forms in many of these, and I'll just highlight a few. ARI foundational modules, letters training, which is being offered by the state. I will say it's very intensive. Our teachers who choose to do that commit to 2 years of professional learning, many hours of studying, taking assessments on their own outside of school hours. And so we have lots of teachers. In fact, we have about 35 who are enrolled in that right now, which is amazing considering the commitment. The NIHouse basic language skills is something being offered, and you have to be accepted into that program. Again, many, many hours of training. We have Take Flight, which some of our interventionists, some of our coaches and teachers have long been trained in Take Flight. We have some who are continuing through that. That is a few years of training classes, very intensive. And then Phonics First, which is something that we actually started a few summers ago. So all of our kindergarten teachers were trained a couple summers ago. First grade teachers were trained last summer. All of our second grade teachers will be trained this summer. That's something we chose to do and committed the funds to support our teachers in that. We're already seeing great gains for all of our students because of that. And it is on one of the few on the approved intervention list. So we're thankful that we're already going in that direction, and that will continue all the way up through 5th grade. So actually each summer, our teachers will roll up a different grade level in that training. So overall, we have about 68 teachers who have been trained in Phonics First or Orton-Gillingham method, which supports all of our kids in literacy, as well as our kids who may have dyslexia or characteristics of dyslexia. And just a few district highlights as we wrap up. So a few things that we're really proud of and really have done to communicate. A parent video was released back in September to really educate our kindergarten through 3rd grade parents about what does this law mean, what does it involve and mean for my student. That's available on our website. Whit has worked so closely with me to keep our website updated and continually add information that can be helpful to parents. We published, I think, our second podcast episode was on the Literacy Act, where we interviewed one of our literacy specialists, and she shared great tips for our parents. And then, like I mentioned, we're very excited about summer reading camp.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Brooke. Okay, I want to share with you an update on school attendance and some changes for our reopening plan, fourth edition. And so let's start with attendance. This is really small to see, but you can get the idea as we do each month. When you look at the red and blue, the red are the numbers of students by percentage that have quarantined because of close contact. And you can see what's happened in February. Those numbers are really holding very well across the system. The blue is those percentages of students who had to be home because of COVID-19 positive. Just keep in mind that when you're looking at this large chart, that represents less than a percentage of students, so still very low. Just a little bit of an uptick, which is consistent with what UAB has said to us. There's been a little bit of an uptick in adolescent positive cases. CDC has said that as well, particularly in the ages of 10 to 19 years old. But when you get down to just the summary points I want to make with you, we are, as of today, at 0.26 percentage of our students have had a positive diagnosis of COVID because of a close contact at school. And I emphasize that to you each month. I think that's the most pervasive point to make, that it's important that we say that school, the way we have operated school, the procedures we have in place are continuing to work well. You can also see the percentage estimates of students with COVID-19 as far as we know it, and those who have quarantined, as well as for our staff members. You can see what those percentages look like. And we have this breakdown by school as well. There are no things over the last month that have jumped out as being any kind of outliers. So we continue to do well, and I would attribute that largely to the cooperative efforts of staff and students and parents to make school a safe place. And it's not risk-free, but all things considered, I think we've done remarkable work this year in our schools despite the circumstances. That's informative, I think, to us in thinking about our plans moving forward. And there's much interest, I know, in what we're going to be doing heading into this last quarter. And so I wanted to bring these updates to the reopening plan to you tonight for conversation. Basically, we want to continue to observe the enhanced procedures that we've had in place all year relative to safety and health of our students and staff. Specifically as it relates to face coverings and masks, we will continue to follow the procedures through the end of the school year that we're following now, and the students will mask and staff will while they're indoors. Certainly they don't while they're at lunch. And of course we know that, but outdoors, we're allowing people to unmask if they have the appropriate social distance. But we'll continue the process as is. I think that's important to reemphasize because the goal is that students be in school and that they be in a place that is safe. And we certainly understand that there's much debate about this issue in terms of its effectiveness, and I respect that position and part of it. But what we have been doing has been working well, and what we want to do is keep our students in school. And so as a corollary to that point about face mask, effective today, what we are saying across our district, our students that are in traditional school will not be able to move to remote through the remainder of the school year unless it is for a COVID-19 reason, at which time our school administration, our nurse administrator would be involved to determine that quarantine timeline. I think that's really important because I want to say again, when you change from one model to the next, you impact all of the work that's done within the schools with teachers' roles, et cetera. So it's important that we hold the line here. And we're in a position, I believe, with keeping masks in place, that there is not really a compelling reason other than COVID to move from traditional to remote. So that's the order of business for the remainder of the year. Likewise, students that are remote and committed to remote at the beginning of the semester will stay there through the end of the semester. That is once again important. The only way that they have moved back to traditional has been our SST teams have looked at their academic progress and determined that they may need to be back in traditional, but that's really been the only reason. So it's important to bring those to light because we're in a different circumstance than we were first semester. The exams for students in secondary grades will count toward their final average this year, this semester. And students that have to quarantine that are in traditional settings If they have to quarantine around the time of exams, we'll provide makeup times for them to do that in the traditional setting. So those are significant things related to face coverings and academics.
Dr.
and
What's the
instruction.
process if you have a COVID reason? Like how does if a student was in traditional and wanted to move to virtual, what's the process? that they would-
What has been the process?
I know what is the process,
Right.
but now moving forward, now that we basically said
Yeah.
it can only occur for very small
Yeah.
reasons, what's the process?
We would use the same thing we do once we have been made aware of a COVID diagnosis. Then we can confirm that. Our nurse can help us do that. I don't really think our principals are in that position. They're not medical experts to do it, but our nurse administrator can determine the validity of that or validity of a close contact and then make the assignment of quarantine based on the 10-day criteria.
But they would come back,
They
right?
would. It would only be temporary. Really, I think that's important. I just think it's important that we keep the eye on the ball that school should be taking place through May 27th. And any manipulation of roles from traditional to remote creates, logistical challenges that I just don't think are appropriate. So it's really, I think, a focus to make sure that we're in the right place with attendance for traditional. And as of right now, we have about 900 students that are in remote, which means the remaining students, about 6,200 or so, a little bit less than that, are in our traditional setting.
Will this go out? We'll send it on.
Yeah, tonight I've got a video that's set to go out this evening, just to inform them about these changes that you see on this document. Do we have it up? Okay, yeah.
The video.
No, the summary of the changes.
So,
Yeah,
that's
so,
great.
yeah, that, we'll have this summary document of changes along the reopening plan, plus our
Can we-
video goes out.
Can we highlight the exams, right? I mean, so like my kids don't know, right, but you study and you prepare a little differently knowing you got to take an
Absolutely.
exam. So whether we Facebook it, tweet it out, whatever, just, people don't love to read stuff like that, but
Well, I certainly think. we can do that.
hopefully your kids
Yeah.
they prepare a little differently if they know they got to count and grade.
Say again.
Only as it relates to exams, just an emphasis point on that and underline.
Not the big,
You know,
it's not the big
on those things. So we'll make sure the summary sheet goes along, it's going out, with the communication. But it's just an emphasis point Jennifer said about final exams.
So going forward, somebody that has COVID or think they have COVID, they're gonna need a doctor's documentation.
Yeah.
And the case will be looked at not only by the school nurse, but the nurse administrator.
Yes, and I think that's more appropriate because that's her role,
Right.
has been to administrate this through the year. And a COVID diagnosis may not have to be done by a doctor, but we have to confirm we have a COVID diagnosis or some form of close contact. And, are there ways to manipulate that? I would say that there likely are. I would hope that, all of our parents, including me, as a parent, would do the right thing and follow the rules. But that we would want that to be a verified situation.
But the most advised is 10 days, right? You
That's-
still have to come
That's right,
back or
right, that's
reschedule
right.
exams.
But I know we
10
do,
calendar days.
10 calendar days.
we do have some students that have the goodness of their heart for the care of everybody else. They're willing to self-quarantine.
Yes.
But to self-quarantine now, you're gonna need hard documentation from a doctor.
Yeah, there's gotta be a valid verified to the extent we can prove it. Now, on the other side of this equation, and this is important, I think, to note, is that what we want to try to do in the last quarter is to we want to move school to as much of a typical year as possible. And that's not completely possible, but this gives us the best chance to do that on the academic side, in my view. But it also gives us a chance, I think, to open our campuses to allow for parents to have some attendance and involvement. If you've been in a secondary school, you've been able to go to athletic events, things like that. But elementary, not so much. Anything related to the arts, not so much. So what we want to do is provide opportunities for our parents to be able to get on campus, for our students to be able to have some activities that more resemble what a spring would look like. So whether that be open houses or field days or concerts or other type of events, the schools are planning those. And I've given you a document that shows a lot of the things that they've got planned. But the parents at their respective schools will be hearing, about all these events coming up. And so, over the last month, we've been able to start opening things more, and that's good, as long as our numbers stay where they are, and I don't see a compelling reasons they wouldn't, we can do more things. So this document talks about those indoor and outdoor type events that will be opening up this semester. Rebel Pals, which has been an important outreach from our high school leadership class, will be able to resume in elementary grades and so forth. One thing to note on there is kindergarten orientation is not held in person this spring. Obviously, it wasn't last spring, but our principals, kindergarten teachers have found great value in how it was done at the beginning of this year, where we got kindergartners in for open house. There was a virtual component to orientation. There'll be some form of a model of that again this August, and when Dr. Rainey reports to you in April, I'm gonna ask her just to kind of brief what the principals have planned for kindergarten. But I think it's a good idea in that spring orientations are a little tricky because you don't have a high percentage of students who've actually enrolled for kindergarten yet. So we miss an opportunity for all our parents. So this is one of those changes from COVID that I think will serve us well. But I did want to make sure we noted that that wouldn't take place in the spring. Are there questions with these, General, that I can answer additional?
Amongst the activities, graduation looms out there.
Yes.
So we need people to be wise in their daily actions because graduation's still hanging in the balance.
Graduation still takes place, and
Okay.
we still have the same expectation for behavior and academics that we do for this. I think it's very important to point out. And since you did mention graduation, it will be held again at the stadium. There still are some restrictions where we typically been able to go Sanford on numbers, and we think we can obviously seat more people in our stadium. We can have our kids separated at a point and in compliance with our procedures here where they can get distance on the field and not have to mask. All those are good things. So we can get more people into the stands, more family members, and that's a positive. So I'm pleased to announce that's going to take place.
I know you and I had discussed it. Has there been any thought more to broadcasting, streaming graduation?
Well, we did, I think.
We did last year.
We did last year on the NFHS network, and provided it as a free feed. You didn't have to have a subscription in order to see that. Yes, sir.
So we can do that again for people.
I would imagine so. Morgan Jones with VNN at the high school was the one that ran the live stream, so we'll check with her and make sure.
Without speaking to her, I can't imagine we wouldn't, because there still would be some limitation.
Yeah.
And honestly, for families, it's a great thing for
I think
families
it's
that
very good. Yeah.
live somewhere off and
Yeah.
get home anyway, so it's a really great feature.
Will middle school have exams or just the high
Some
school?
do, yeah. So, I say 6 through 12 just to encompass secondary. I do think that there are some 8th grade classes that go through exams, so I wanted just to be as general as I could about that. So some of them will, we don't say the correct.
So you anticipate this is the plan till the end of the year,
I do, I think,
regardless of,
exclusive of any changes from the governor related to mandates, I don't anticipate any changes like that happening. I know there's a lot of anxieties perhaps in terms of what spring break looks like on population, et cetera. I mean, we really don't know. Based on what I've seen so far, I'm comfortable we get to the end of the year with a good plan to say keeps our kids in school, keeps learning as our focus. So,
Well, I know all the pictures I've seen from spring break, everybody was masking. So.
And 16 points.
Yes.
okay.
any other questions? Okay, we have some time for public comment. Anybody interested in public comment? Okay. There's nothing else. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.